Welcome, everyone, to Two Guys in Hockey Talk. My name is Pawel. I am here with my wonderful co-host on the road.
On the road again. My name's Evan Renaerts. You can reach me at REV, and I am revving it up in my Jag, heading southbound, man, on the Queen Elizabeth #2. But I'm doing the speed limit. And if you're worried about me, you're saying, man, he's driving and he's talking on this podcast. Guys, I am literally looking straight at my road, turning. If I was with my wife, Pawel, I'd be doing this.
Sounds like that's safer than what you're doing now, but I appreciate it. So welcome to Season 6, Episode 10. We've got a jam-packed show. We got a wonderful guest coming up. You're going to introduce him in just a sec. We got a lot to cover around the NHL. But first, let's get to our first guest.
Guest headliner, brought to you by JR Web Design. Is your website stuck in the Stone Age? Well, you need JR Web Designs. They'll craft you a website that's as awesome as our show.
Hey everyone, welcome tonight to Michael Devillano, U.S. head scout for the Everett Silvertips of the WHL. We had him scheduled a few weeks ago. He canceled on us, man. He did it, but he's back because he's a man of his word, and he filled in because we had a last-minute cancellation again. I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe we're not as popular as we used to be, but we must not be too bad because, Michael, you jump back in. Welcome tonight.
Hey, boys, what's going on? What are you excited about?
Oh, the season, everything, so many hockey news, but of course having you on the show because we want to get into a lot of things with the WHL, and I know you are pretty much an expert. That's what Evan told me, right? So I can't specify if that's true or not. So, do you want to kind of talk about kind of what you're doing these days? I know you're kind of behind the scenes telling us that you're in Arizona right now. What are you doing down there?
I'm actually leaving tomorrow for Arizona. I just have a tournament. It's actually my first crack at looking at the 2010s. So we have a Bantam draft. So I've been keeping tabs on them, but it's a little tough for me to see them. This is really the first tournament that I get a chance to see them and kind of have an idea of who to look for, but I haven't seen them yet. I'll kind of catch up by the end of the year. I'll have a whole bunch of viewings, and then we'll get to draft them in, I guess, May. So, and actually, tomorrow's an interesting day. I don't know if I think tomorrow is the day that the NCAA votes on the resolution. Change. So that's probably the most topical thing that's going on.
Which is surprising that they're not talking more about it. Go ahead, Evan.
Yeah, no, actually, we'll come. Maybe we'll. You know what? You brought it up. We'll change some of the questions I had. Why don't we ask you about the whole NCAA thing? Why don't we ask? I know on X there, Michael, we talked about it. I've seen you commenting around. What's your thoughts? You're in the WHL. If NCAA players are going to be eligible, what's your thought around that?
Well, I mean, they're not NCAA players yet. They're too young, right? So it's always been
players
nonsense,
being eligible to go
right?
to the WHL and
it's
still
nonsense.
go to the NCAA.
It's always been nonsense, right? It's always, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion. It's always been a bunch of nonsense.
Okay.
It makes it would help. These are the two premier leagues at those ages. NCAA is effectively the only real pro league, yet they would always call CHL players pro because we give them like $50 a week. But, I've had players that we drafted, and then they get an NCAA offer, and they're getting not only NIL, they're getting 23% rev share to play NCAA hockey now. So they get paid on top of, the one player told me, I got a $400,000 scholarship. So, it's a little weird. And then, the reality is we've always heard from agents of what they're actually also getting. So even though those are the rules, there's always other stuff that was going on. And we didn't really care too much except, you want the best players to be playing in the CHL. It's the best league in the world for 16 to 20-year-olds. So I think it's about time. I mean, it took a class action lawsuit and I think an antitrust lawsuit to kind of shake this down. But I think it's going to be a win for the players. I mean, that's what you want. In the States, it's very difficult for players, the best players, to play between 15 and 18. You're not going to be able to go to the USHL. You don't want to play in the null if you're a top tier guy. 16U gets blown out, especially in the West. By 16U, if you're playing 18U, you just don't want to do that. And so there's there's a real drop off in competition after 15, 16, and guys are paying like 50 grand a year to play prep school at Shattuck and these other schools, and it just doesn't make sense. Like the best 16, 17, 18-year-olds should be able to play in the best league, and that's in the CHL.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Let them go NCAA.
No, that's fair. I mean, we have some fans of the show who are big WHL advocates, and they believe that that's one of the better leagues, and they will die on that. So you can set them straight if you want. That's fair. So I know that you are
the WHL, which is part of the CHL, right? Is the best league in the world for 16 to 20-year-olds. Like, there's nothing better than that. And there is an argument for, well, a guy's overager at 20. We only keep a handful of those. Let them go play NCAA if they're not going to go pro. And you can tell because their numbers double a lot of the times, right? They'll keep the best guys, and they're just so much more physically mature at that age. It's just
so. Do you not think that? So let's just say the BAHA, the British Columbia Hockey League, who's been really working hard because they're one of the main ones for in the West, at least, when it comes to being able to get players and get them into the NCAA. Do you not think that, for example, the BCHL, this is going to hurt because those players, instead of going through the BCHL, they can actually go now and follow the process, start in junior, but maybe they're deciding to go NCAA, but they take off with the WHL club. So now they don't go, or their backup is I go NCAA because I realize I'm not as good as, or at least I'm not prepared.
It's going to be an order of operations. They're going to have a lot of players that go to those leagues. Maybe they don't get the top guy, but they don't have depth. Like, they have a massive gap. They'll have a guy that'll go in and blow the league out. It's not a young league either. USHL and BCHL are older than the CHL. If you look at the average age, it's like a year and a half older at least. So that averages out. Like, they're waiting for guys that are going to get commitments to NCAA. So it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
To me, it's like you should have the best players playing against the best players. I don't think it's going to negatively affect the U.S. Development League, but you look at those guys, they're skimming the top 23 17-year-olds in the U.S., and they're playing 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds to get any competition. So it doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. I think that you're going to have, all the leagues will be appropriate, right? You're going to still have really good players in all the leagues, and I think that they'll have better competition. I think the players will develop better that way. I think it really affects U.S. players not having the best place to play between 16, 17, 18. And I think you're going to see better U.S. guys, more guys that are better, playing at a better level of competition. And then the guys that don't go pro, they can go semi-pro and NCAA. Like, they're getting a lot of benefits and dough to go there. So,
well, we love prospects. No, that's fair.
Right? They're playing 40 games.
And we wonder, Evan really likes to focus on the prospects and the young guys coming up into the league that potentially could go pro or semi-pro or, make a career out of it. Is there someone in the United States amongst players that you think that we should be keeping an eye on, players that we should kind of be focused on watching, maybe checking out if possible, wherever we are, or online if you're watching like the AHL streaming service for some of the teams or some of the young guns?
In the U.S. right now, I mean, I haven't seen the 2010s. The 2009s are, we drafted some real good ones. We drafted a real good goalie out of Anaheim. So he's playing 15U. That's Evan Ank.
Good player. Good player.
Yeah, a good goalie, right? Like he's
exactly. Good goalie, Evan.
Yeah, and what's nice about him is he's close to our goalie coach. So our goalie coach is actually based in Orange County. So he actually gets to work with him now, which I think is a real win for them.
That's sweet.
So that's really positive. Our other 2009 Drew Fox is playing up with the 16Us at Dallas. And he's having a really, almost a point a game, playing on the top 6. And that's a very strong team. That 16U team is really, really good. Also on that team, so we drafted Booker Tornado. And Booker is committed to ASU. So that'll be interesting to see. Like, if this gets voted in, he would have an opportunity to play for us and then go ASU. And I think he would be a much better player by the time he gets to ASU. And he would be a great silver tip he is a prototypical Silvertip. He's got skill, he's got grit, he's got speed. Like, he does things that a Silvertip would do. He's got really good hockey sense. And then the other one's our defenseman there in Dallas, which is Cameron Dillard. And he's like a 6 foot. I'm trying to think, what did we measure you in at, Cam? I think we agreed he's 6'4", but he's got really good hands and he's a very smart defenseman. And honestly, there's a defenseman to me that is the perfect example where if he came to the CHL, he will be so much better than him being at 16U. He played at 16U as a 15-year-old, and he has gotten better, but he needs better competition and a much tighter schedule where, like, him training every day at that level with players that are older, that's going to make him so much better. He should be a guy at 09 that ends up being drafted in the top 2 or 3 rounds in the NHL draft. In his draft year, that's what should happen. But I think it almost hurts him being at 16U. And where's he going to play next year? He should be able to play with us. He's not ready for NCAA. So I don't know. That's a great example. And there's a lot of players on the team. Mark Jomo is a goaltender that he will be a lights-out NCAA goalie. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes U.S. development at some point. I think he's probably the best goalie at that age in the 08s. 08s? Yeah, 09, 08s. Yeah, he's 08. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. There's some really good players there at that age. That Dallas Stars elite team is very, very good. I mean, Shattuck's always got really good players, obviously, but
with them.
That's some
well,
really
everybody,
good.
We got to. Sorry, I was going to say. So, if you're just coming in right now, so Michael Devellano, U.S. head scout for the Everett Silvertips, WHL of the CHL. If you guys are confused about that, we'll talk about that a little later on. However, I do. A lot of people are really interested. We've talked about it each week. We were planning a few weeks ago, Michael, to share a little bit. I know I had tried to get a little check-in with Landon DuPont, who is your 15-year-old exceptional first-round draft pick into WHL. He started off like everyone looks at the points, but I'm more interested. I mean, obviously he's knocking out of the park. You've been impressed at least a week ago when you were writing me. What's he been like? Maybe tell us about Landon DuPont. And I didn't check in the last couple days where he's at. How's he performing?
I mean, it's like getting a 17-year-old defenseman or 18-year-old defenseman that's 15. He's like 5'11", he's probably about 185, elite skater, elite hockey sense. Like, he has a real good shot at being, by the time he's ready, he's going to be a top 5 NHL pick. He'll be shocked if he doesn't. And he's a very good teammate. He's just a humble, smart kid, and he fits in extremely well. He's just an amazing overall talent. And yeah, everybody obviously looks at the offensive numbers. Honestly, I haven't even checked. He was on kind of a tear for a bit there, but I mean, he's still I think he's on or a little bit over a point a game still.
Yeah.
And so we're really doing well, guys. I don't know if you've seen us, but we're top 5 in the whole CHL, and we're like first place in the WHL. So we're having I think that's better than any of us had anticipated at this point.
So it looks like for 2024, he had in 14 games 4 goals and 12 assists.
Yeah, he's been a little slow.
And then projected. I mean, the projected number is quite big according to what he has. But in the last little bit, he's been putting up solid numbers and really making him
15-year-old.
15 guys. Yeah. I mean, it's hard when you watch him, it's hard to believe he's 15. I mean, he's like an 17 or 18-year-old defenseman.
Wow. It's that's amazing. And you have someone not named Connor, but you have someone named Carter
Barry.
An exceptional. Tell us about. I think it's Carter Bear. Is it?
Yeah, Carter's. I mean, he had a terrific camp. You could see he was almost point a game last year with us as a younger player, but he's eligible for the draft. He's been rated as a B in the NHL scouting. As soon as they rated him a B, he's been on an absolute tear. I think he is no, I'm an A. An A would be a first-round pick. I'd be shocked if he doesn't sneak into the first round. I just don't see why he would tail off. He's just such a smart, above-average skills, high-speed player that he's got killer instinct. He does not have a stop in him. He can shoot, he can score, he can set guys up. He's really, you can play him in all play, all points in the game. He can play power play. He's an exceptional talent. I mean, we have a lot of talent on that team. Like, one thing about us, we do have a high skill team, and we lost 2 really good players to the A. Like, so you think about Austin Roost and Ben Hemmerling left, and it was like, I kind of thought they might come back, but man, we have not missed a beat without them. Like, we have a real talented group.
That's excellent. So moving into this season, it seems like you guys have high expectations, as one should. What are you, or not? Or are there any expectations for how to proceed with this season? What is expected? Is it, similar in where, like, a McDavid says it's cup or bust? It's kind of like we got to achieve the.
We're young.
Well, still, I mean, if they're going to try to do
we're
something,
really young. Like, I don't think we were thinking this level for another year. If I'm being honest, like, I think if you look at our team, like, we had a lot of guys went to NHL camps, which was great. Like, Karen Smith came back, Cade Hamill came back, Miettinen was a 2nd-round pick that went to Seattle, right? He came back, and they're good players, but there's other guys that have stepped up. Jesse Heslop didn't get drafted, went to NHL camp. Like, he's a really excellent player. Like, we just have a real good deep group. Brought in Tyler, Mike brought in Tyler McKenzie, which has been an amazing addition. Like, he's producing like way above what I ever would have expected. And there's an example of like an overage guy that just, man, his production is like way above his normal clip. Like, he's on pace for a big season. So I don't know. We just have a lot of depth. The goaltending, Jenner's done an amazing job with Sanch. And Sanch has really turned into an excellent goalie. Had a little bit of a rough game the last game, but he's overall been like an amazing season, way above what I would have anticipated based upon his first couple of years in the league. And that was an acquisition. And then we got another, kind of up and coming goalie to give him hand. And man, there's just a lot of pieces there. Like, you got Eric Jameson back, Calgary draft pick, like. Our D is something else. And we still got more in the pipe. Like, we have guys coming. Kane Wilkie, I don't know if you've watched him, but he's moving up the lineup, I think. Like, Kane's 16, and he's lighting it up. He's putting in some points there. I don't know. What is he up to? Is he 5 goals now? Or is he – I mean, that's an underage player. He's a 16-year-old, so – and then our other 16-year-old Liskey's looking really good. So we got a lot of –
4 goals and 1 assist right now.
Yeah, so that's a 16-year-old. So you're on pace for what, 20 goals in his rookie year?
Yeah, that's what he's on pace for.
Yeah.
He's impressive.
Wow. Well, okay, so we talked some of it. We always got fans want to talk NHL. We know you're a fan of the Detroit Red Wings. They're all over the place, man. They got the Yzerman plan, and tell me, what storylines are you following right now around the Red Wings?
I mean, it's hard to peg them, right? Like, I think they are what they were last year in a lot of ways, right? It's going to be a bubble team. They're 500 right now. I kind of think they'll improve a little bit. Like, having Edvinsson full-time has really helped. I thought he kind of made the team last year out of camp, but they're very, very patient, obviously, with the young guys. Sometimes too patient for fans. Like, having Patrick Kane is really important for them. I mean, you can see how that surgery worked out. That was very, I think we're all a little concerned and skeptical, but he's still such an elite talent. I think he's just playing so top of his game. The Brinkat's playing much better than I would have guessed. Like, he had a real fast start last year, and I think he scored his 6th tonight again, right? So I think he's on a really good pace. Like, he's kind of in that 35, 40 goal pace. The guy that maybe isn't getting as many goals is Lucas Raymond. Signed the big contract along with Seider. Seider looks great, of course. I don't know. I think overall the story for me right now is there's 2 defensemen and then a bunch of other guys. So that's kind of a problem. And they're both the young guys. So they really need to figure out. I think they thought they had that 3rd defenseman figured out with Trouba, and he nixed that deal. It sounds like they still really want to move him. And with, not that he's going to Detroit, like, he nixed that. That probably would have helped Detroit. You know, that is kind of the spot they need to figure out, is that number 3 D man. Now they have ASP in the. I don't know if you've seen Sandin Pekala. Holy crap! This guy is going to be ASP is going to be something else. Like if you like, I mean, that's a right shot, fast, smart. Like he's playing really well in the Swedish league. So that's really interesting for the future. Not going to help him this year. Maybe at the end of the year, you never know. Maybe they bring him in. But I think the way, you know, they're pretty patient with guys. So that's the hope for the upside there. And then the second line center is just a problem, I think. Like Confer's the coaching staff really likes Confer, but he's always had that tweener thing, right? Like he's not a true number 2 centerman, but he's a little bit too good to be a number 3. So it's kind of a weird hole for them. I know that a lot of people, including myself, were hoping Nate Danielson would be ready, but that doesn't look like it. So I don't know. I just think at the end of the day, they have a lot of options for the future still. They've worked in young guys, and we just got to be patient. Like you still got to wait for Sebastian Casa. You still got Augustine in the NCAA. You still got the guy that they picked, by the way, Nygaard Brandsig. Holy smokes, he looks really good. Did you guys see him at the combine? He's a monster. Like he looks like a man already. He's a big body and he's got that big shot. So he looks like he might be a bit of a steal again where he was picked. So I think they did really well.
He's a bit of a Hulk.
He's a Hulk, and boy, and he can shoot the puck. Like his favorite player is Ovechkin, which was not always a selling point for me. But if you get a guy that's kind of modeling that at a 15 or a number 16 pick, whatever he was, 14 or 15, he was up there, right? I think he was around there. But yeah, I think there's still upside for the future there. They don't have that true number 1 star player. I think but then Lucas Raymond is still a point a game right now, so that's positive. You know, he led the team in scoring at 72 points, so that's helpful. But I don't know. They're still going to be a bubble team. And they might be, they might regress a little bit because other teams have improved around them. So.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting go in the Atlantic with everything happening with Boston. Tampa Bay still playing elite. Toronto kind of just whatever Toronto is, like continuing.
They're weird. Yeah, they're weird.
Yeah, it's they'll make the playoffs, but it's so weird. So I did want to ask you, because you kind of alluded to Yzerman's drafting. And, of course, there's always a lot of speculation of Yzerman going off the board. And I was wondering, because it's a 2-part question, kind of like your thoughts on his drafting so far in the last few years, given that the recent story of Wallman, who was traded to San Jose, was benched by San Jose. And even though a lot of Detroit fans, from what I talked to, coveted him and were kind of upset he was traded away, given how much they liked him. Do you think that Yzerman's hitting it, or is it just kind of, random here and there, plugging holes?
Well, I mean, he's definitely trying to build layers, right? He's trying to build assets that can compete now, and then guys will take jobs from older guys as they age out or they get outskilled, right? But I think I get what he's doing. The other way to do it is, and you got to remember, they were, if you go back and look at how bad the record was, like the year that they drafted Lucas Raymond, that was a barren team. There's no talent in the organization, pretty much. Like your top guys are Veleno and Rasmussen, and then they had what was the guy, Martin? You got like Burke. Where is he? Like you look at the guys that didn't really work out, and you got Zadina. That worked out like shockingly. Actually, I thought he would be a real good player. Like he's a guy that works hard. Skilled.
He also chose to agree to cancel that contract and look for another opportunity.
That was gutsy, man. Like he believes in himself, but just his game is not. There's something missing there, but it's more mental, I think, than anything. So none of that was working out. Like that was like an empty cupboard. And if you go back and look at how bad that team was, they should have had the first overall pick. Now it worked out getting Lucas Raymond, although Alexis Lafreniere is turning out, right? But Lucas Raymond, arguably, Stützle and Raymond might be the top 2 guys out of that. Byfield is back down to 0 goals, so he's struggling again after what looked like a breakout year last year.
Yeah, last year was a breakout season.
They gave Lafreniere a contract, but I would argue that Stützle and Raymond are the better guys out of that. So You know,
I
he's
always
got-
like Stutz a lot more. I was surprised that LA went with Byfield, but I understand.
it was we had all watched him struggle with Team Canada. Of course, he did well in the O, but if you go back at Team Canada, they had to like kind of bite their lip and put him on the third line. And he struggled in board battles. He's a big hulking man though. Like he could be like long term really good. Will he ever play center? I really don't think so, to be honest with you. Like if you look at what he was always good at and how he would score goals, I think he's better suited to the wing. You know, he's got a good shot. He's a big guy. He's got to keep it simple though.
Do you know what my concern was, and this is from the very beginning, is because he was so big against the players he was playing against and thriving. That's why everyone thought would Lindros continue once he got into the NHL. But he was so big and strong. But then you have Byfield, and my concern was he's not a real aggressive player. Like he's strong and he works
He gets
hard.
knocked off the puck easily.
Yeah.
He loses board battles. It's almost like he's too far from the puck a lot of times, which sounds weird, but that's tough. He's 6'5", and he looked like when you see him off the ice, he is legitimately like some guys look big. You see him off the ice, they're not big. He is a big person. However, like to your point, like he looks like he's going to lose a lot of battles in close, kind of like the Elmer Soderblom thing, right? Like, almost like he's too tall. You know, it's strange, but. I don't know. I think he'll be a good player, but arguably Lucas Raymond is the better player. Arguably Stützle is maybe the best player out of that draft. Lafreniere's, panned out, but what is he? Is he blowing? Is he going to be at 90 points? I don't know about that.
Well, and I always wonder. So I've been worried about Lafreniere, but his growth curve. You got Lafreniere's growth curve is continuing upward. Whereas I am a little worried about Stützle that I don't see really a lot of improvement in his 200-foot game. But your point comes through. Lucas,
he's got 17 points in 12 games, guys.
I like Stützle.
He's legit. I mean, I laugh like, okay, I get the German diver thing. That's annoying. Like I'm annoyed as anybody. This guy's a killer, man. Like he had a 90-point season already. His down season was what? Was it 70 something?
Yeah, 70 plus.
70 points. So he's a really
still excellent. But here's the problem, though, Michael, is his defensive game isn't improving. That's one of the things that is the thing that the pro scouts are kind of, well, at least from a distance, right? I mean, we don't know behind the scenes, obviously, with it. But again, if you look at everybody that was in there, like a lot of people are all up on Jake Sanderson. I was never as high on Jake Sanderson, but I think he's
Jake
a good
Sanderson was
defenseman.
drafted. Like if you remember when Jake Sanderson was drafted where he was, it was like what? But we all watched him, and I'm like, he's very quiet. He's got way more skilled than you realize. He's very mature, and he would do little things to open up. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, he's the greatest defenseman ever. And I'm like, no, he's not. But he's very good. Like he's ready for the NHL, and he got paid. But I don't think he's like. He's a number because he's a number one.
Two.
That's the thing. He's a weird player. Like, is he a number one or is he really a number two? And I kind of always feel like
second pairing.
He would be a first pairing but number two guy.
Yeah,
right?
Depending on who
if he's a second pairing, he's probably too good for the second pairing. So it's like he's a weird player that way, right? It's kind of like the Aaron Ekblad, Jacob Chikrin type thing, right? Like he's too good for this role, but he's maybe not quite good enough for that, So, but he's a young player. They're like, are they the youngest team in the league or is Buffalo? Like they're both pretty young.
Montreal, I think, is the youngest.
Montreal is, Montreal's another really young thing. So that's
they're going through their own struggles right now. So I guess one of the things that we want to know beyond the Red Wings in the NHL, is there a storyline you're kind of following this season, and is it potentially Detroit poaching Sam Bennett as their second line center, because that's something that's going to be coveted. And who knows if Florida can afford him for for what they need.
Didn't they sign those guys though?
Not Bennett. Bennett's the next one up.
Yeah, Bennett's the one that came out of
Bennett's
Calgary,
the one that's up. Yeah, they signed the other guys. Yeah.
I haven't really looked at that cap situation, but I mean the cap is going to go up another 4.5, 5. It is Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Hey, real deal. How are you? the cap goes up, what, another 4.5, 5 is what's projected. It's going to be 100 million before you know it. So it'll be. I'd be shocked if he doesn't stay there. I mean, look at what happened when he was in the wrong place. Like, here's a guy that was 4th overall. He's in Calgary, and he just like drowning in Calgary under the.
Well, he struggles in the regular season, but turns it on. He's a playoff performer. He's a gritty guy, right? Like he's got something special. So I think the biggest story, like, first of all, is Kaprizov. Like, watching Kaprizov is I think it's tough because Minnesota's, again, an imperfect situation. Marco Rossi's ready. He looks like a number center, and that was, I think, USA. Who's that? Brock Faber. He has been unreal.
Yeah, Faber. I mean, that was an LA King guy too, right?
Yeah.
Is that the Fiala?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that he's proven better than I think anyone guessed at this point. He got paid like it, and he's a really, really top defenseman. Like, that's a number 1, 2 guy, right?
Yeah.
They're hurting a little. Is Spurgeon out again?
I thought he was in the game versus Toronto. So
was he? Okay, I haven't kept track of that game. But I mean, Kaprizov, Rossi, to me, that's what I'm keeping an eye on. I thought it was interesting that Wallsted's in the minors and not producing. So a lot of us had, like, he's really, and that team is bad, by the way. That AHL team, I don't think, is very good. Like, they have nobody in the pipeline, right? Like, they've graduated Boldy, they've graduated Rossi. Boldy's a great story, but Kaprizov, I mean, he's going to get paid what?
14 million.
14 million.
He's looking at Draisaitl / Matthews.
Yeah, he's a superstar. So
that's going to have a lot of money left out because those bonus penalties that they for the buyouts are done next year for Suter and the other guy,
Parise.
Yeah, Parise. So those are done now.
Okay, so the other weird
quick thought, Michael.
Oh yeah.
Quick thought. So you're talking. We've talked about this in the show, the end of last season playoffs around Bennett. Do you remember the year Bennett was being drafted? What he was the guy that couldn't do a pull-up, and everyone was saying that this guy can't do a pull-up. What's going to happen?
McDavid couldn't.
And he's a power forward now.
I guess, yeah.
Well, but you know what I mean. You got to be careful when you're evaluating at the draft, right? Because
I don't think everyone puts all the stock in the combine. It's a data point. That's what I always say. Like, that's why I had this argument on Twitter with some guy, which was probably silly, but he's like, "Oh, they pay the analytics guys so much." I'm like, they pay scouts more. Like, it's a data point. They're bringing us data, right? Like, that's not how we make decisions. That's how fans make decisions. Okay, like, we're evaluating players. If I don't see a guy, it's a problem. And if I don't see
it's like analytics, right? Fans are all over analytics. Media are after analytics. Yeah. Analytics are important, but they're only 1/3 of the game, right?
You know, they got to maybe
anyone that's actually in the game. Yeah, exactly. Analytics will use, but so it's an interesting. It's an interesting
best
season,
line.
brother.
What's the best line in the NHL, guys? It's in Vegas. That's shocking, right?
I would say Winnipeg, maybe.
I think the top line is that Mark Stone line.
You think so? I would say Winnipeg because they've been on fire with Scheifele and Connor and.
I mean, Winnipeg's a great story, right? But I think the Vegas line, like, Mark Stone's got 20 points in 12 games. And then who's he playing
I think
with?
people rolled them off too soon. I didn't think that they were as bad as they were. They had hard playoffs, but they faced Dallas last year, which for a wild card seed to face Dallas, or a first point. Sorry, they were a wild card at Vegas. But like, I look at it as like between them and Vegas and Winnipeg, those are two teams that could go deep. However, will Winnipeg fall under the pressure again in the playoffs?
What about Martin Necas? Like,
he's really turned it on.
Oh my goodness. Like, you could see 2 years ago, you're like, why is this guy not playing? Like, it doesn't make sense. And he's like, trade me. Like, his dad's like, trade him. This is stupid. And now you see why. Like, this is like, holy crap. He's because I would even say last year, we would talk about him, like, most nights I watch, he's the number 1 or 2 player on that team. What are we doing here? Like, why is he playing second unit or third unit? That's kind of silly. And you can see this year, he's on fire. Like, he's such a good player.
Well, yeah, you lose Teravainen, and you go up to Rob Brinderborn and you tell him you want more ice time, and he's like, "All right, prove it to me." So
well, he doesn't have much to prove. Like if you look at him 2 years ago, he was like everything he thought he was. He was their third or fourth best player, but most nights he was their top 1 or 2. I mean, I think he might be better than Svechnikov.
I did enjoy the story. I don't know if you heard about Brett Burns and their bus breaking down and him buying over 1,000.
What was that?
So Brett Burns of Carolina, I guess they were on their way traveling, and their bus broke down. And so a lot of these guys after the game were hungry. So he didn't have a car, so he walked through a drive-through to McDonald's and wanted to order 1,000 burgers or cheeseburgers, whatever it is. They didn't let him, so he went up to some rando in a car because you need a vehicle to go through a drive-through to order him. So when he was interviewed by, I forget the what's it called, writer from The Athletic about this, he asked, did this happen? And all Brett Burns said is no comments. So kind of alluding to that this happened.
Did he go through with a snake?
He just asked
crazy
some
rep
random person, hey,
collection,
can
right?
you buy me 1,000 burgers?
That's so wild. Can I get 1,000 number 2? That's so funny. The other one that I was going to bring up was, I mean, the bread man in New York, he's playing really well. Sam Reinhart, what the hell? Like, how is this guy? Is he going to get 50 goals? Is he going to get 60 goals? Like,
Yeah.
that's, the key to being a superstar is leaving Buffalo. Like, Tage Thompson, like, listen up.
Yeah.
He
was almost traded for a fifth a few years ago.
If you redrafted the year Ekblad, right? You had Reinhardt. That's Draisaitl's year, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of us thought Draisaitl will go first, but
so Draisaitl goes first. Who would you redraft after Draisaitl?
I mean, you have to go Reinhardt at this point.
I would. Pavel?
Right? Like you kind of have to, like, just based upon.
I'd have to look at the draft.
So, I just want to go back and comment. My REVS top 15, I had Reinhardt number 1. Now, I had no idea Dry would turn out the way he did. Everybody's been doubting me for years, and I said, he'll come around. And I'm sure all the Lafreniere people are hoping the same.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What is Lafreniere? Like, he's got 5 or 6 goals, but if you watch, he's a very good player. I mean, he's
smart.
Legit.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I know you Ekblad and I have cups, but you could make a case for William Nylander potentially being up there.
Goodness, what a year.
Yeah, like he and maybe Nikolai Ehlers, one of the best.
Reinhardt's
playing really well right now, right?
Yeah,
but,
like
that's a good draft here, man.
Nylander's exceeded what I would have thought. I mean, pretty astute.
He was noted he was a center, but they've tried that in Toronto. It hasn't worked.
He's not a center.
He's not a center. He's a winger. He likes to go north and south. That's his game.
No, you got wingers though, right?
He's a ghost when you lose the puck. I've never seen a guy go at a guy straight and then he ends up on the other side every time.
Just to add a few more players. Adrian Kempe in LA, really good scorer. He went 29.
Too. That was another guy that buried under Daryl Sutter, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, this guy's not going to pan out. You get rid of, and then all of a sudden he's like, no, this guy's a top line player. Like, here's a top 6.
Well, and I think one of the problems, guys, is when you're evaluating, and we all have different opinions. Teams have different opinions. Like when you got wingers, centers. But like, what about the 200-foot game that some people don't realize? Yeah, they score a lot, but they give up a lot, right?
Also,
what about the
Braden Point?
How are
they
in the dressing room? How are they on the team?
But so was Thatcher Demko, and forgetting all his injuries. Thatcher Demko went in the second round, and I know goalies are hard, but to go 36 to Vancouver, oof.
So look at this draft, okay? That when you look back at it, Pasternak, Draisaitl, Point. I forgot about this, okay? Because there was guys that went late. Like,
okay.
Pasternak, Draisaitl, Pasternak, Braden Point, Reinhardt, Nylander, Larkin, Ehlers, Fiala.
Wow.
Like, Travis Sanheim, who's been excellent in a dark place for Philly.
And you had Ekblad go first. Bennett was in that draft. But listen to these other names that are interesting. Victor Arvidsson, Schmaltz, Jared McCann. I mean, he's a 30-goal scorer probably, right? 28 to 30.
Brandon Montour for Anaheim.
Alex Tuck, Barbashev, who's carved
Yeah.
out a career for himself, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned Montour, Taves.
Warren Fogel's in that category in the third round.
Warren Fogle, I do not understand what Edmonton was doing with Fogle. Like,
Yeah,
why
I
would
know.
you let this guy go? Although,
I know.
he was a 20 goal scorer last year, and he plays heavy, and he's got skill and speed. And then the McLeod, look at McLeod. Now, the carrot was Savoy, but here's he's not ready yet. And I love Matty Savoy. He's going to be a good player, but McLeod is showing
They're supposed to win. They're not supposed to worry about the future right now. Yeah.
They're too old.
Also, Sorokin went 78. Another great goalie.
Can I just go back for a sec? What was the draft here for the Bennett stuff? Was that 2014?
2014.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that was a way better draft here than I actually thought.
Oh, it's nuts when you look at it.
So, because I'm going down the list here. So, if you want to know another diamond in the dust, New York took Devon Taves at 108. So, in the fourth
I was
round.
saying, like, Taves, and they gave him up for nothing.
Nothing, a second and a third.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that draft is you got guys, look how old they are now. This is 10 years in. So these guys are 28, and Reinhardt's getting better. All of a sudden, Ehlers is getting better. Like, it's kind of crazy. Now, the one guy that really didn't pan out, was that Liddell Cole year? Yeah, it's Michael Del Cole and Josh. Michael Del Cole, the New York Islanders, and Josh.
He did not. Yeah.
So the Islanders were 0 for 2 right there. What was interesting about
that's interesting, Michael? That's an interesting Del Cole. I was shocked actually that didn't work out.
He was money for Oshawa. He was just a monster. But I guess it's a case of couldn't skate, could shoot. The rules kind of changed.
Yeah.
There's something missing there that just even when he went back to the O, it was like, ooh, what's going on? And I think he didn't. I don't even think he made Team Canada, and that's always a big, red light. Right? For me, what was interesting. Okay, so if you go back to YouTube, I probably said this to you guys before, and look for the Toronto Marlies versus the Mississauga Rebels GTHL final. It's the 96s, but McDavid played up with the 97s. So the Marlies had Sam Bennett, they had Josh Hosang. Connor McDavid was a year younger, so he was 14 with the 15s, right? And they played the Mississauga Rebels with Robbie Fabry, and both the OHL Cup and the GTHL final were insane. Go watch it. That was some of the best hockey. It was crazy. And I think the Marlies also had Roland McEwen on that team. And they might have had one of the Richies. The Richies they had one of the. Yeah, that Marlies team was nuts. It was just crazy. But I think the Rebels were really good. But the only guy that really came out of there was Fabry. He was a one-man wrecking crew. That's a crazy game to watch those guys when they're 14 and 15.
It's incredible to see how these guys have carved out careers for themselves after being drafted, and the way that their career trajectory has gone to see where do you think they're going to slot versus what they've been able to do with the team that drafted them or moving on with another team.
Shesterkin was in that draft. What the hell? So Shesterkin, Mizlurkin.
What's that?
Shesterkin was in that draft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2014?
Yeah.
Mizlurkins.
Oh my god.
And they also had Nedeljkovic, Kokkonen, Sorokin you mentioned, right?
Yeah. There's Lakins was in it, although he struggled the last year.
Sorokin with the 2014 too. Oh my god.
Vanacek, who's in San Jose. And Ville Husso was in that draft.
And Jonas Johansson, who's played backup pretty solid for Tampa Bay.
Colorado, or where is he now?
No, he's Tampa Bay. He's been there for a while.
Man, that draft here is starting to sound like a top five.
And that was the one where Yzerman went with Braden Point, and everyone at the other GM tables, the 31 or 30 at the time. Right?
Minnesota traded away from him.
Yeah.
They said, oh, we like these two guys the same. I don't know if it was Kyle Rao or something like that. We like these guys the same. Yeah, take Point. I was like, what's going on? Well, that's what's going to be curious about the Red Wings, because they've got that Russian kid too that's scoring a lot in the KHL right now. So
who is it?
Oh my God, why am I blanking on the guy's name? He was a second-round pick for them, and he's looking like he's really good.
Detroit?
Yeah, Detroit.
Guys, I'm going black because I'm going by some police. So.
No, that's fair.
I'm still here.
I'm trying to remember. Okay. Was it the what draft was it? 20.
Bukelnikov. Is it Dmitry Bukelnikov? So it was like Marco Kasper, Dylan James, and then the Russian guy, Dmitry Bukelnikov. And he's got 21 points in 23 games in the KHL this year.
It's always fascinating to go back and revisit drafts to see what
it was only 3 years ago, right? So he looks like he's like they're kind of hoping he comes over and see what he's got, but he's right now he's looking like a snipe show. He had 13 goals last year, so that's a guy that's got some potential. It'll be interesting to see. I think the Red Wings are going to surprise us at some point. Even Max Plant, like he looks like a little baby, but man, he looked real good in camp, I thought.
The only thing is, Michael, so if you think about, we talk about this, when you're a bubble team in the middle, you're getting players to kind of push for playoff, right?
Yeah.
How do you get better centermen without development? There's so much competition. How is Detroit going to really get to be an elite team again if they keep picking like between 14 and say 16?
Well, they gotta have a development bump somewhere, right? So I think he's just layering talent. ASP has that potential. Kos has that potential.
Yeah.
Augustine looks really, really good. And then you've got to hope they get Nygaard, Brandseg. You hope Raymond keeps developing because he's very young, really. Like him and Sider are very young. Edmondson should keep, he looks like he's got all the potential in the world. If you got Sider, Edmondson, and ASP, I think that's your hope. That it's those 3 guys that really bump it up, and that Kosa comes up maybe in a year and starts getting games. And then that elevates the goaltending. And then the question is, how good can Kasper be? I thought he took a big jump in camp. You can see there's a big difference between the AHL and the NHL. But think of last year, he looked terrible at the beginning of the year. He looked terrible in camp, looked terrible in the AHL. And by the time the season was over, oh no, he's developing. Great camp. You can see he's not clicking number-wise, but I think he's going to have the same thing. He's the type of guy that maybe figures it out. And then Nate Danielson is a pro. Nate Danielson, he's a much bigger player than you realize. He's a much better skater than you realize. He's just got to figure out the offense. And that's the question. Can he develop the high-end offense? You don't want him capping out as a third-line center. So you're hoping that becomes your second-line guy. And you hope that happens before Larkin gets too old.
Yeah. He's in what, year 3 or 2 in his contract? 2, right?
Larkin?
Yeah. And that big contract he signed with the Red Wings?
Is it one? Is he in his second year?
I think he's in the second year of that contract because it was some negotiation. I want to say 2 years ago. So maybe
he's only 8.7 or something, right?
Yeah.
It's not it's to your point.
It was after the big Bor Horvat signing and one other, because they were comparable to that. And,
which is a good comparable. So it was March 2023.
Yeah,
8-year deal, $69.6 million.
Yeah.
But you worry again is that first of all when he's not in the lineup, because there's a massive drop off. But then if you compare him to the top centers in the league, he's not there, right? But he's turned out better than I would have thought. I honestly thought he would never be more, he had 130 goal season, but then you realize how bad the team around him was at the time.
Yeah.
It definitely helps surrounding him with a lot more talent.
Yeah,
when you have wingers like DeBrincat and things like that, and I mean, I know Tarasenko's back, but even Kaner playing with a little bit more veteran, older guys who can put the puck in the net or can shoot. That's what DeBrincat's known for. In Chicago, easy goal here and there. I mean, a couple of 40-goal seasons. Same with Tarasenko. Had it not been for his shoulder, Tarasenko could be a 40-goal scorer almost every year. That's how good he was, right? It's just that shoulder got him.
Yeah, for sure.
Got his 2 cups. He's set. You could debate whether he goes to the Hall of Fame. I guess final thoughts before we wrap up having you on the show, Michael. Anything you want to share or kind of get people to follow or check you out somewhere?
I mean, you can find me on X. So it's Pucks and Dreams. I think there's an underscore maybe at the end. I can't remember. I think I lost Pucks and Dreams, and it still exists. I just have no idea. I cannot recover it for some time. So anyways, I built up I don't know, what do we have, 5,900 or something on Pucks and Dreams _. That's primarily where I'm hanging out. And then, I don't know, if you're watching, if you want to see, obviously Landon Dupont is very much go on CHL Live. and look for WHL games with the Everett Silvertips. We're #1 right now in the league. There's some other, I mean, there's obviously other very good teams, but we're a lot of fun to watch. We're playing a high tempo game. I really like, coming out of camp, I really like how our new coach, Steve Hamilton, who came from Calgary, you know, you're not sure. He's been around the league 10 years. You're like, oh, are we getting a guy that can push us to that next level? And his practices are really good. You can see it in the games, how we play. Like, it's pretty exciting with the talent level we have and how he
cool
to play. And I think he runs a really good bench. But we're a fun team to watch. Like, you're getting opportunity to see Carter Bear, who I think he'll be at least a second-round pick. I wouldn't be shocked if he sneaks in the first. And then Landon Dupont. And then we got a bunch of drafted guys like Taryn Smith, Miettinen to Seattle. We got Cade Hamill, another draft pick. Like, we've got some guys there. So we're a lot of fun to watch. Jesse Heslop's having a great year. Tyler McKenzie. But yeah, it's an inexpensive way to see some high-end hockey, and I would go online and watch that. And then the other guy you want to watch, I think, if you get a CHL pass, is Gavin McKenna. And he's a fun player. So that's probably someone that's worth watching.
Yeah, we're fortunate. I get to usually see about 5 to 7 games of his in Alberta here, so that's a benefit.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Seeing him live is pretty wild because you don't see him away from the puck when you watch on TV, right? His play away from the puck is amazing, but he looks effortless. But speaking of that, James Higgins, I don't know if you saw it on X. The guy, when he skates, he doesn't even look at the puck.
Yeah, I posted that clip on my Instagram. I do.
Isn't that crazy?
I'm trying to remember. I have an Instagram. There's a funny story behind that, actually. I bought the Instagram from someone that had built it up, and I was like, oh, it was for sale. I'm like, oh, it's got 32,000 followers. Wow. It's kind of a meme Instagram.
And you lost it?
No, I have it. It's called NHL Plays. So you can follow me on there. I'm not.
Okay.
But what was funny was we had drafted a goalie in the first U.S. draft. So Grayson Sachin, right, just signed his contract. He was the first pick player in the U.S. Bantam draft for the WHL.
Oh,
that was the first guy ever drafted there, right? And we drafted fourth a goalie out of Anaheim that never ended up coming, and he hasn't really turned out. But he's really good at building Instagram accounts, pretty much, by the way. Because I realized that's who I bought the Instagram account off of. I was like, oh, what the hell? And I don't think he clued in that it was me that bought it. I mean, he's a goalie. He's like in another universe, right?
Oh my.
I think he's in the BCHL now or something. I don't know if he's doing great. But yeah, it was so funny. I was like, yeah, well, this is good at doing that.
Well, Michael, thanks so much, man, for taking the time tonight. We normally only do 20-25 with everyone now. But man,
sorry, guys.
No. This has been good. I'm sitting here driving, and I got to tell you something. I'm going down the Queen E2 before I had to shut the lights off. I'm doing everything legal. And you guys started talking about all the 2014, and I looked down, and if you go back on the podcast, you'll see my eyeballs open up. I'm looking here, and I'm doing 170K. I didn't even know. What? And I'm like, oh boy. And I'm fully cruising. I just got excited talking about the 2014 draft.
Jeez. Yeah, that draft is fun, but don't go to jail.
Yeah, right.
So you guys
people who said they're not doing anything illegal, it feels like he's doing something illegal.
Listen, you're in Canada. There's nothing too petty to prosecute and too criminal to overlook. So
yeah.
Well, could I write a letter and say I'm really sorry?
Nope, not anymore.
All right. Well, Michael, thanks again so much for taking the time and jumping on the podcast with us here tonight, last minute. Appreciate it. And we wish you the best the rest of the season. Enjoy the 2010s?
Yeah, the 2010s. I'm excited. There's some good players, it looks like. So.
Yeah, well, definitely keep us updated. I'll keep an eye on your X, and we'll keep some people updated around some players that look like they might be some good picks.
Perfect. See you guys later.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Guest headliner, brought to you by JR Web Design. Is your website stuck in the Stone Age? Well, you need JR Web Designs. They'll craft you a website that's as awesome as our show.
Well, that was a little bit unusual, but we appreciate Michael DeVillano coming on the show, speaking about kind of the Everett Silvertips, some young players coming up, some prospects that you should keep an eye on. If you are in the area, make sure to check them out, or wherever you stream your hockey games. Evan, that was great. We don't have a lot of time left. We've been pretty busy. You're still on the road. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Where did you want to finish up the show tonight?
Let's just take a few minutes. I was going to talk about it last week, Pavel. There's two things. There's a new happening. I want to talk about Mishkov, Mate Mishkov. We had Jamie Baskow from Flyers Nitty Gritty on a couple weeks back. I think it was, 3 weeks ago. And anyway, we talked about how Torts has been really good with him. He's saying we don't rely on an 18-year-old. Well, now this week, there's been less. He's got less ice time in the last game. If you guys follow on X, Jamie Baskow, he's talked a bit about it. Said, well, it's just he's got the guys he can rely on and stuff. It's starting to show because there's some things that Mishkov is doing that he needs to learn, right? Which is normal. I mean, even though he's the number 2 highest scoring person on the team. But here's the thing. 3 times this year, he has tried the Michigan, and he hasn't made it. There's 2 strains of thought, Pavel, and then you give me your thoughts here. How long will Torts let this go? Number 1, because he doesn't like guys that show off, but he's been okay to this date. Number 2, will Torts care? So someone like Robbie Schremp has been on our show a few seasons back. He shared most of the times when you do a Michigan, there's no chance that you're going to lose the puck and it's going to cost you, as opposed to passing it up. You could lose it at the point, right? So there's less risk, but he keeps trying to put it up in the back there and it's not working. Will it matter, or will he say just keep doing it? And number 3, what do the other guys think when they're not getting open ice passes because he's doing the Michigan? Thoughts?
I think it's going to be just a quiet conversation between the coaching staff and Michkov, and maybe his interpreter if he's still kind of like figuring out English, and just say, hey, listen, there's a time and place for it. Like, let's seldom do it. You can't really take it out of the game completely. It's going to continue to be present. However, it depends. Again, a lot of factors go into it. What's the game at? What's the score at? Is it a power play attempt? Is it just 5-on-5? Like, what does that look like? Are they down and he's trying to do this? Does he believe he has a chance to score? Who's on the ice with him? What's the game plan? What is he doing? Because, as always, players will go back to the bench and watch themselves play on the iPad. They'll review the play they're doing, and I'm sure sometimes a coach or assistant coach will come up and have a conversation. I think Torts now has really calmed from the back of the day Torts, who was a little bit more fiery. So I think he'll have a bit more of a soft John Tortorella approach, if you know what I mean. But I still think he'll say, hey, listen, like we got to work on your 200-foot game. How do we work as a team to work on adjusting to the NHL ice and getting playing? Because he has been an outstanding rookie, but there's a lot of things he has to learn through. And it'll take some time.
Interesting. Yeah, it'll be an interesting one moving forward. And the last thought I just had that I was thinking about tonight, we won't go into much detail. We're wrapping up our show now, but I was thinking about, we had Connor Doyle on from the Hockey News. By the way, he was a contributing writer with the Hockey News for the LA Kings. He is now a co-writer. So congratulations to Connor Doyle and getting that extra work with the Hockey News. So good to you, Connor. Connor, like I've asked Connor,
show, right? After being on the show.
Yeah, and I've asked Connor, yeah, exactly. I've asked Connor if he would consider throwing an article out for us. So I have asked him to go into his contract and to see if he can do 1 or 2 for us. And can I say this? I'll come back to the LA thing in a sec. You're just talking about being on our show. Long time ago, like, was it last year or the year before? I cannot even remember in the seasons now, Pavel. We had Jeff Davison, former counselor in Calgary. With
2 seasons ago.
2 seasons, okay. Well, I don't know if you guys know about this. Jeff Davison is running for mayor. So, interesting. Jeff, we're there behind you. I feel like if I could throw a vote in for you, I'd do it, Jeff. Great guy. Unfortunately, I can't get him back on the show at this moment. He's got to be very careful. And I'm definitely not going to pull up. If he wins, I'm pulling up our old video, and we're going to talk about how we tried to advertise him for mayor in that one location downtown Calgary. I was thinking about that, Pavel. Anyway, Turcotte. We were saying with Connor how Turcotte has not been really producing. He hasn't got his opportunity. It hasn't worked out. This year, Turcotte's game has seemed to change around for the LA Kings. And he's starting to turn into maybe not the player they had hoped, the high-end guy, but things are turning around. And so I just want to throw a shout out. I think it's wonderful. I know we're talking there with Michael about, you know, some of these guys that you didn't think were going to get better, and they're getting better even at an older age. So I like to just say, you know, hats off to Turcotte, and congrats on getting a good opportunity now and taking the most of it and making the advantage of it.
100%. You're seeing a lot of players this season take different steps and moving forward in their careers and having breakout seasons, and others who have kind of lagged. You look at a Zach Hyman who struggled a little bit, Jonathan Marchessault and Steven Stamkos in Nashville. I wrote about it today in my article, the weekly updates that I do. So go check it out on our website. You guys can go. But yeah, there's definitely some stuff. Now, before we end the show, remember every week that we are here. You guys can go check us out on our webpage. We got articles regularly going up, all kinds of things, whether it's the Boston Bruins, whether it's college hockey, whether it's gambling and things like that and how that impacts the game, or just weekly updates. We got you covered, plus a list of all our guests, including Michael DeVilano, who will be up there tomorrow on our website. We appreciate Michael coming on the show again. It's been fun. I know we didn't get a chance to get to your Rev Top 15. We'll get to them. We do know that the Four Nations face-offs teams are starting to be announced, including some of the key players. You guys can let us know which players you think will make it. It'll be an interesting go of it. And as always, we appreciate all our sponsors and everyone that works with us, JR Web Design, Penny Billionaires, Puckpedia, and the Kalkaska Battlers. Their season's on the go. It's been fun. They've been promoting a lot on Facebook. Go check them out if you're in the region. We have had a blast. Go ahead.
And I just want to mention our guest for the next 2 weeks scheduled. So next week, we have from the VIJHL, that's the Vancouver Island Junior Hockey League and the Campbell River Storm, we have their general manager, Luke Ravel. He is scheduled to join us. So we're going to get an interesting take. They went independent last year and separated from Hockey Canada. So there's been a little bit of a move, but I'm really interested. If you guys remember Jadlyn Spooner, who we are, and I apologize, Jadlyn, if you're following tonight. I am like 2 weeks behind on a whole bunch of stuff. We did have Dwayne Hay booked for tonight. I messed up. I didn't make sure everything. I have to catch up here, buddy. I'm an article behind. I'm a couple guests behind. But now so next week is Luke Ravel, and in 2 weeks, Puckpedia's own Hart Levine, who started Puckpedia, will be with us. So if you have questions and you want to know how different things work around cap space, LTIR, how it happens when you send them down, waiver wires, he's got great answers to that. We're going to go through some stuff. The guy is a genius. He won't call himself that, but he's done a great job on that site. So go to puckpedia.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning in again. Remember, we are here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We are on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter /X, on Instagram. You guys can give us a follow. Make sure to go like, share, subscribe. Get all your latest information about the hockey world. We will be back again next week with another Rig-a-Ding Dandy. And Evan will be stationary, not mobile, stationary in the next show. So thank you again for everyone tuning in tonight. It's been fun. We hope you're enjoying the hockey this week, wherever you're watching from. Any final thoughts before we end, Evan?
Well, first of all, before we do the wrap, guys, as we say every week, I'm going to say it, but before I do, I want to say thank you, Pawel, for rocking it tonight, running this show, setting it up, getting everything moving. I appreciate it. It's made it actually a very different night for me. I'm able to get to my location, and I've had fun. I've taken 1/3 of my trip, and I've just had a blast on my way in my drive. So, guys, jump on this show. It's fun to watch. The difference is, feel free to comment. But we love everything you guys said. We love you guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for following. Thanks for commenting. Subscribe. Do all those things as he mentioned. And I'm going to tell you guys, every week we say, and in the meantime, and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice. Stay safe. Have a good night.
Have a great week. Cheers.